Schlesinger. I am a site reliability engineer at a company called Fairwinds Ops. We do managed Kubernetes services, which if you want to know more about that, I can tell you at the end, but I won't tell you now. I am the head of education and content at Develop Denver. So all of the talks you went to, all of the workshops, I actually control that really tightly this year. And I co-founded a company called Diversity that I used to be the developer for, and I stepped down from that a couple of months ago, but now I'm on the advisory board. So I feel like I'm finally in the tech industry, which is cool, because in the spring of 2015, I was an unemployed person who wasn't quite sure what they were going to do, and so I enrolled in the Galvanize boot camp in Boulder, and I was in one of their very early cohorts called G8, so super early on. I'm going to tell you more about that, but I'm just going to tell you what I want to say right up front. So there's 3 things I want you to take away from this talk. The first one is it's okay if this journey that you're embarking on takes longer than you want. Second thing is whatever you did before Flatiron School matters. It doesn't matter if you were me and had a pretty in-depth career and a master's degree and all sorts of stuff beforehand, or if you did something like bartending or being a barista. All of that matters and it's really valuable. So be able to fold that in and be able to tell your story. And then the final thing I want to tell you is not all tech jobs are web development jobs. So if you aren't totally in love with web development, it's okay. Be curious about other possibilities. So I'll go into what I do now in that one. So I'm going to start with it's okay if your journey takes you longer than you want. So I grew up in Canyon City, Colorado, which is south of Colorado Springs. I have a degree in music education from the University of Northern Colorado. I was trained to be a band director. Any bears in-house?
No.
Almost one. Almost a bear. I wanted to be a band director when I went to college, and then throughout my studies I decided I don't actually want to be a band director, but I want to work with kids, so I taught elementary school music for 2 years. I graduated in 2008, which was right when the recession started, so I worked at 2 different schools, part-time. I saw over 500 students a week, and that was just not how I wanted to connect with kids. So after 2 years, I joined Teach for America. I moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I taught special education. I got my master's degree in that, and I really love education, but even when I was teaching, I was like, I love education, but I do not love kids. And that's okay. I would watch some of my colleagues and I would watch them get energy from their interactions with children, and I'd be like, that's not me. So I got really burned out of teaching. It's actually really common for special education teachers to get burned out faster than their colleagues. The load on you is very, very intense. So I got burned out of teaching and quit in the spring of 2014. But the last 2 years I was teaching, in the summers I worked for Teach for America. And the way that Teach for America works is they recruit folks, you get accepted into the core is what they call it, and then they do an alternative teacher training program, which is like a boot camp. It's 6 weeks, where the first week is you are in professional development sessions, and there's someone telling you about, well, how do you teach? What are the techniques you use? And then the last 5 weeks, you are teaching summer school part-time, getting coached by these instructional coaches, and then doing these professional development sessions in the afternoons. And I was the professional development person, so I'd say, here's research-backed techniques about how teaching and learning works, here's what they look like, and everyone's like, yeah, that makes total sense, totally easy, and then once you get in the classroom, you're like, oh, this is really hard to apply. So that's where I found, I was like, oh my gosh, I love teaching teachers, and I love teaching adults, so I had a lot of expertise there. But in traditional public schools, it's hard to move into an instructional coach role unless you have 10 plus years experience, and I wasn't going to hang around for that. And at the time I lived in Fort Collins, and there weren't a whole lot of charter schools, and some charter schools it's easier to be promoted into those roles. So I quit, and I'm like, I have a lot of skills, I'll be able to find a job. And I looked for a job. If in retrospect I did it all wrong, whatever your career coaches tell you, I wasn't doing that. But I got really frustrated and really sad and really scared, and I was like, I think I need some additional training. So I looked at getting another master's degree in education to do ed policy stuff or like lobbying, and then my boyfriend at the time told me about these code school things, and so I looked into that, did a little bit of coding, like on whatever, Code Academy, and was like, cool, that sounds cool, I'd like to try that. So fast forward, I'm in G8, I'm excited, like I'm a good student, I've done this before, and it's a total shit show for me. Like, I remember when we were talking about functions in JavaScript, and I was like, I realize this is an important part of being a programmer, but I don't even have I'm not even on the same planet as everybody else, so I really, really struggled through my code school experience. Part of it was bad teaching. Later on, I got hired by Galvanize to be a teacher trainer, but part of it was just like, I needed a little more time than my colleagues, and I wasn't able to get it. So I struggled through, I eventually graduate, I start looking for work as a developer. I had a standing offer to be an instructional designer at Galvanize, but a woman who was in a cohort ahead of me basically pulled me aside and was like, you have to be a developer, it's so important for women to be developers. And I took that really seriously, so I was like, no, I'm gonna be a developer. And it was, fits and starts, and I got a couple of offers that didn't quite fit, and eventually I was like, you know what, I actually do want to do this instructional design thing, and my boss at the time and I had an agreement. We actually both had done Galvanize, and we both wanted to be developers, and so we were like, we'll build in an escape hatch together, we're in this together. So still on number one, it's okay if your journey takes you longer than you want. So I go to Galvanize, and then I got hired by Galvanize to do the job I had done right before Galvanize. Like, I could have done that job just exactly the same without the code school. But people started taking me seriously because I had more connections, I could talk about code a little bit. So I do that for a couple of years, and during this time I go to all the Galvanize campuses, and I coach teachers, and I get to meet everybody, and I get to see all the instructional teams. And I also am like, I still want to be a developer. Like, Annie's message to me, like, still is really important to me. And I meet Kyle one day, and I don't know, he runs his teams differently than other people. His students get better outcomes than other students, and I'm like really curious about what's going on. So I was living in Boulder at the time. I start coming to Galvanize Denver once a week and hanging out there, and there's a lot of stuff that happened in between this, but eventually I move on to Kyle's team, and I am an instructor there, and I also do all that coaching stuff, and so that ended in May of 2018, and so after Galvanize, I decided, like, all right, it's time for me to be a developer. I was plenty technical at Galvanize, but I didn't do it all day, every day, and so I took a job at, it used to be called Reactive Ops, now it's called Fairwinds, as a site reliability engineer, just sort of like a slice of the technology world that you can go into, but I work with companies to set up their infrastructure in the cloud, so on Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform. We help people containerize their apps and break their gigantic apps into microservices, and then we use this super hot technology called Kubernetes, which schedules all of those services on that cloud architecture. If something is broken, Kubernetes can see it, it will like kill it, spin it up somewhere else. It's really interesting technology. So let's see, April of 2015 is when I started my bootcamp experience, and June of 2018 was when I got my first full-time tech job. So it's okay if your journey takes longer than you want. I realize at Flatiron School or any of these boot camps, when they're marketing to you, they can't be like, get a tech job in 6 months to 5 years. It doesn't work that way for marketing, but that might work its way for you, and it's okay. I think the length of code schools can actually be really psychologically damaging for some people if they don't get it right in that amount of time, or you don't get the job right after. It's fine. This is a huge career change, a huge life change you're embarking on, and it might take you time. On the other side of the coin, some of you are going to get jobs like before you graduate, and that's also totally cool. So, but this is for the slowpokes out there. If you feel bad about yourself, you don't have to, and if you want to talk, I am available. So it's okay if your journey takes you longer than you want. Second thing I want to tell you is whatever you did before Flatiron School matters, be able to tell your story. So I quit teaching in the spring of 2014, and I started Galvanize, and I literally thought to myself, like, goodbye, career in education. Like, it was, you were fine, I'll never see you again. I was like, those skills don't matter, I'm a totally new and different person now, and that was total bullshit. Like, my education skills are like the thing I bring to the table. Tech companies, in every part of their company, need educators. They need people who can teach other developers how to be a developer at their company. They need people who can help their marketing team teach potential users how to use their complex product. Like, my skill set is incredibly valuable, and I just didn't believe that about it for a while. And so, whatever you did, like I said, it could be anything. Even if you were a college student beforehand, you gained a lot of experience and some expertise in whatever you were studying. It matters. Be able to tell your story. So at my company, I'm involved in a lot of hiring. We're a small company, and we talk about how valuable boot camp grads are because they have like varied life experiences. We have a lot of folks on our team who have traditional computer science degrees, but we love boot camp folks because like usually they've done something interesting. You've probably faced adversity if you've decided to go to a boot camp and like take this enormous risk and drop a lot of money to do this. So just by virtue of being a boot camp grad, you are interesting to a lot of employers. So yeah, that's that. And then the last thing I want to tell you is that not all jobs are web development jobs. So last night, some of you were at the front end framework. I organized the speakers. I also haven't like written a line of JavaScript for a year. I could probably, if I worked really hard, I probably could have been one of the presenters, but I don't do any front end. I don't do any like user interface facing things at my job anymore, and that's cool. Like, I always kind of had a hunch when I was at Galvanize that I really liked back-end stuff and I really liked deployment stuff. I loved helping students when they were having deployment issues on Heroku, and then I found out I can have a whole career in that. And so I do site reliability engineering, which is sort of a subset of DevOps, but like a lot of Linux stuff, I'm on the command line all day, and it's totally possible. So some people are web developers. Like Marlena last night loves crafting like a beautiful interface. She loves working with users, figuring out what works and what's best for them. And that's just not me, and it's cool. In the same vein, I still try to think of myself as a full stack developer. Like I have like some side projects that I build with HTML and CSS, and I'm not trying to lose that skill set completely. But if web dev, if you like don't love React or Vue or any of those things or CSS, like you should still work to get better at them, but know that there are ways to specialize in the tech industry. So that's actually all I have to say. I would love to take your questions, but let me recap. It's okay if your journey takes you longer than you want. Whatever you did before this matters. Be able to tell your story. And not all jobs are web development jobs. And if that's interesting to you, ask me more or get curious. If you'd like to contact me, I'd love to chat. I'm on Denver Devs, or you can catch me in person. I am a piece of crap on email and LinkedIn, and so like, if you contact me there, I will probably never get back to you. But I try to come here at least once a month, and I like mentoring people. So if you're like, oh, I really resonate with Kim, or I really want to know about what she does or her background, like I would be happy to talk more. So thank you. So what questions do you have for me? And tell me your name when you ask your question.
Yeah, totally. I'm Jeremiah Tab.
Jeremiah.
Yes. I was wondering like how you found technically the transition from a boot camp to kind of the DevOps world, because I have a DevOps friend, and the things he's talking about with kernels and Kubernetes and a lot of the more computer science elements of this world, like how was that transition for you? How was the learning curve?
Sure. So I was really lucky. I got one of those weird junior dev or junior SRE jobs, and they're quite rare. Like probably none of you will get a job that's labeled junior. Maybe one of you. I don't know what the percentage is. So I got really lucky, and my company was like, we understand you do not have this experience. We are willing to train you. So that's how it's worked for me. I will say, like a year and some change into this job, there is nothing computer science specific that is holding me back from doing my job. There's no algorithm that I need to write that I can't write yet. Like there's a lot of stuff I can't do that I would like to be able to do, but it is not, the CS thing is not the barrier for me. So drop that if that's in your head. Yeah, my company has been willing to train me. I do have a lot of knowledge about how humans learn, and I'm able to apply those things to myself. And once you're immersed in it, like you start learning it, you get experience with it. But I was also really lucky to find a company and a team that supports me in doing that. So, but if you're interested in DevOps stuff, I have a channel on Denver Devs called Getting Into DevOps that's designed for those sorts of questions, and I have a list of resources that I think are really good in terms of like just getting a flavor of what it is. Thanks, Jeremiah. Yeah. Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Katie Wokash. As far as like the data science world, I know that there are data science boot camps that are specific to that field. Do you think it's, going on your third point, horizontal jobs or web dev, how, I don't know how much you can speak to, if you're interested in maybe more of like data science role or some sort of hybrid, like how easy would that transition be?
Ooh, how easy would that transition be? I don't know how easy it would be, but I think even right now you can start thinking about like, how can I build a portfolio that shows I'm interested in data analysis and data science? And so there's so many good APIs out there that you could like analyze data and then build a dashboard around. Learning Python I think is really important for data scientists. That's like the language. Just so many tools have been built in Python for data scientists. And then find a data scientist in the area and talk with them and get their input. I don't work with any data scientists and don't know much about it, but I think it's totally possible. And it might be like your first job is a front-end job, and maybe in that company you move in that direction. But I guess one thing that's hard for me but has benefited me a lot in my career is saying out loud what you want in terms of career ambitions. So when I was at Galvanize and I wanted to move to Kyle's team, I said to my boss, "Hi, Evan, I would like to be an instructor on Kyle's team." And just saying it out loud, like Evan then was able to sort of change things so he could support me in getting to that. And I said it to Kyle, and he's the one who could help me get hired. So say it in the interviews if it feels appropriate, like I'm interviewing for this, but I'm really interested in data science, and say it out loud here, say it out loud in the community, but make your intention known. Kat.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in your number 2 point there, being able to tell your story, because I do think that your background definitely has value. Where does it fit in though? Like when you're networking or like in a job interview, like when you're like, also I did this boot camp, I can learn quickly, and this is my background?
Sure. So I don't think you're gonna be super elegant right now, and because you don't actually know how your background fits into your tech career quite yet. Like when I was a boot camp student, I just didn't realize how valuable my skill set was. But I think for you, like the template for your story might be, I'm attending the Flatiron School, I'm learning to be a full stack developer, I'm really interested in technology, and I used to do X, Y, and Z. And so when I was a special ed teacher, I taught in both Milwaukee, Wisconsin and Fort Collins, Colorado, and special ed students get IEPs, these individual plans. And in Milwaukee, the way that you as the person creating the plan, it was a PDF that you could edit, and it looked exactly like it would print off, and I just love that format. It was like, this is what it'll look like when I hand it to the parents. And when I moved to Fort Collins, the state of Colorado like bought some IEP software. That was maddening. It was like, they were all different fields. You didn't know what it's gonna look like when it got printed. You had to like go into a bunch of other like nested views to spell check it. Like it was really frustrating, and it actually like added a lot of time, like 10, 15 minutes to every IEP I wrote, times 30 a year was like hours of my day being like, this fucking software is so bad. So I would even say like, I got interested in software when I got really frustrated as a teacher using this IEP software, and that's one thing that led me to Flatiron School. So It doesn't have to be like the story I tell now is way different than the story. I couldn't tell my story when I was a student, but don't be ashamed of your background, I think is what I really want. And even if it's, this is what I did before and this is what I'm doing now, like don't leave out the before part. All right, who else?
I guess, you just kind of said that right after school it took quite a bit, oh sorry, I'm Ross by the way. It took a minute before you found a job. I'm sure that during that adventure, that, like you said, it got frustrating and you were probably very disappointed. I guess advice from somebody who went through it. What did you do to like keep your head up and like keep working on stuff? And
Yeah, how did I keep like myself afloat? I actually like kept going back to Galvanize just because they let me sit in on classes and there were other people there looking for jobs and we could be like, this is the worst. My dad was a career coach before he retired, and so we would just talk about psychologically, like looking for a job is really hard. It's really painful, so talking about it. And I think for me, like getting things done felt empowering. So even if it was like, I solved a code challenge from cracking the coding interview, like that felt good. So I kept coding, even though I didn't feel super great at it. I kept a spreadsheet of all the places I applied, and that let me see like, okay, I'm actually like making progress, even though one of the hardest parts of the job hunt is like you'll send an application out and it'll go into a void and like they don't even say like no thank you, and that's hard because like mentally you can't close that connection. You're like ugh. So I guess staying in touch with your colleagues and commiserating, like actually just talking about how hard the job hunt is, and then tracking your progress, like making sure you're still doing something. And it's also one thing that was hard for me and hard for boot camp grads that I've observed is the amount of work you do during boot camp is tremendous, and you actually probably shouldn't be doing that amount of work post boot camp. And so like finding homeostasis is kind of hard. Like you still want to keep working, but you don't have to like kill yourself to get that job. So.
Following up with that, since you've mentioned cracking the code interview, were there other resources that you used? And
Yeah, cracking the coding interview is good. I think the level of the code challenges were too hard for me, and like they don't match the code challenges I got from companies. So I don't know. Have you shared the Daily Programmer repo?
No.
Okay.
We've done a couple of them.
Well, Kyle has a repo called Daily Programmer, which is just like code challenges, but there's a subreddit called Daily Programmer you could look at. I really like Exercism. It's a platform that gives you code challenges that have tests for them, and you can write code against the tests. And then you can enable mentor mode, where someone will actually look at your code and give you feedback. Sometimes the loop on the review is really slow, but like I'm doing Exercism, I'm learning Golang right now. Like I'm in mentor mode getting feedback. So I guess really it's find something that resonates with you. There's a ton of resources out there, and just keep going. Like it's tempting to be like, oh, I don't like cracking the coding interview, so I'll do Exercism. Oh, I'll try like HackerRank. Like just find something and do it.
yeah.
Being familiar with the kind of program that we do here, what do you think is the biggest mindset shift that somebody that was like potentially even very successful in traditional education, the biggest mindset shift that they have to make to be successful in a program like this?
Ooh, interesting question. So what's the biggest mindset shift from traditional ed to something like this? Well, I think from my observations, there's sort of two types of people who've been successful in traditional ed. And so one of those types of people is like super high flyer, like got all A's, and was someone who learned how to learn actually. They learned how to sit in the lecture and get what they needed, and then were able to go back and study and apply active learning techniques and learn the material. So if you're one of those people, you're probably okay, because you know how to learn. The other kind of person, which I was more like this kind of person, is like, you're just kind of smart and like school just kind of makes sense and you don't have to ever try that hard. or like you probably tried pretty hard, but never as hard as you had to try at a code school. And I think for that, the biggest mindset shift is, I'll say it two different ways. One is like getting used to toiling, like just doing hard shit. And maybe it's not even that hard, but it just kind of sucks to do it. So toil, that's actually like a site reliability engineering term. It's when you have to do a bunch of work that you probably could automate, but it's taking time away from other cooler work you could do. Another way of saying that is more of the Angela Duckworth, like be gritty, like have a growth mindset, like try something, take a break, try it again, like be positive, even if you're faking it, like saying like, I don't know this yet. Like actually faking that psychologically will lead you to believe that for real, but sometimes first you have to be like, I don't believe this, but I'll get this one day. So, yeah, and I think it's thinking long term, which is kind of here, like, I don't know, I know so much more now than I did a year ago, and I feel the same way in a lot of ways. Like every day, at the end of the day, I write down what I did, and then I write down how I felt, and there's a ton of imposter syndrome, a lot of like, why can't I do this faster or better? And I'm much like, just like, the number of things I do in a day is going up because I have more skills, but my feeling kind of remained constant. So I think even doing that kind of reflection can be really important. So Feelings Friday is like my favorite thing ever. But if you can, even if it's like a couple lines at the end of the day, say how you felt. That way you at least have data. Like I have data now, I'm like, just because I feel that way doesn't mean I'm not getting better. Like I can actually look back and like kind of empirically say like, yeah, I got better even though I felt like shit that day. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't even know who asked the question anymore.
It was me.
Okay, so if you are a super school person, but you kicked ass at like science classes because you know how to study, like rock on, continue doing what you're doing. If you are more like me, you're like, yeah, I was pretty successful in school, but I never like had to figure it out. Like you have to work a lot harder now. My favorite resources for learning are Cal Newport, who's now famous for Deep Work and some other like productivity books. He got famous. He's so interesting. He's a computer science professor at Georgetown. He got famous for writing the Study Hacks blog, which actually just tells you how to study, like how to effectively study. It's really good. And then another thing that I just reread recently, it's called A Mind for Numbers. It's learning how to learn, and there's a Coursera course called Learning How to Learn if you prefer that mode of things. So yeah, you have to work hard, and you have to keep working hard, and you have to keep iterating, and like it starts now, and I'll let you know if it ends.
Well done. More questions for Ken.
Ethan Collins. You mentioned you got into your current role, like you just found a junior position. Like, what made that possible? Like, kind of what network did you?
Yeah, it was not like, oh, look at this junior posting, awesome. It was like this. I go to a meetup called the Denver Leadership Meetup, and the guy who runs it is named Kendall, and he is a super connector. He loves connecting people. He like genuinely like gets a lot of dopamine hits out of connecting someone so that they get another job. So when I left Galvanize, or was leaving Galvanize, I said, Kendall, it's time. It's time.
He's the big beardo I was here with the other day when I was flipping you all off.
So he's like, cool, I'll like connect you with a couple people. And then a couple days later, he's like, wait a minute. We're experimenting. We have talked about this on our engineering team, but we haven't posted anything. We think we want to try bringing in someone less experienced and seeing if they can make it work, if we can make it work. And I was like, yeah, I'm totally interested. So I did some interviews and got a job offer, but there was no job posting. There was no external way of knowing that job existed without knowing Kendall or getting an introduction to someone at that company. So that is true at a lot of companies, whether they're either thinking about it or maybe they've had like a mid-senior posting open for 3 months and they internally are talking about trying something new, but it's not externally facing. Networking is so important. I don't think you have to go to a meetup every night, but I think you do need to have a couple of meetups that you go to and a couple of relationships that you're cultivating and you sort of like water the garden. But that's how I got my job. So now we have that, like we're not actually hiring now, but we'll be hiring in the next 6 months maybe. Now that job posting exists, but it didn't then. So, yeah.
If there's a company that you're specifically interested in, but you don't have any network connection with, how would you recommend like trying to engage with that network?
Yeah. So if there's a company you want to, you're just curious about, but you don't know anyone there, how do you do that? So first thing I would do is go to LinkedIn and just see if I have any second or third degree connections with someone at that company. You probably will. Honestly, like if you're connected on LinkedIn with me and Kyle, like that's a huge portion of the Denver Boulder Tech community. So I would. Third degree is a little bit harder. Can you introduce me to your friend who can introduce me to someone at that company? But the second degree one is no big deal. Like, hey Kyle, I saw you're connected with this person. I'm curious about that company. Would you introduce me? So that's one way. I would just look for people on the Denver Dev Slack channel if it's a Denver or Boulder company. You could cold reach out to someone on LinkedIn. Honestly, if someone reached out to me and was like, hey, I saw your LinkedIn profile, I'm just curious about what you do, can I get you coffee? Like, most of the time I would say yes. So it may be way far out of your own comfort zone, but that's a way to do it. And then the final way to do it would be to show up at that company and say, hey, I just graduated from Flatiron School, I'm really curious about what you all do. Is there someone here that you think this person at the front desk could connect me with that might get coffee with me? So, it's actually, I don't know if it sounds creepy to you, I don't think it's that creepy. But for me, that would, I think before the tech industry, I would have been like, I would never ask somebody for coffee that I've never met or whatever. So, yeah, it is about putting yourself out there in some way.
I will say, just because people have been hitting me up about this recently, if you want to hit somebody up on Denver Devs about like a job that they posted or something like that, have something to say or something you want to ask them, because they'll be like, hey, so notice you posted that job.
Yeah, you need to.
Yes? And? Well, what can you tell me about it? It's like, I posted the details of the fucking, what do you mean? I said what I can tell you about it. But like asking them, what's it like to work with the company? What's your favorite part about working there? Can we go out for coffee? Something like that. Much better than like, so, about that job.
Yeah, that's true. Do need that. Or even like, oh, it's so easy. What did you do before? Where did you work before you worked at this company? Like, and if you are stumped for those questions, ask for help. So, yes.
I'm Ben. So, I think grad students often coming to the obstacle that they see on the job posting require 2 to 3 years experience. What would you recommend? Like, how can we get experience when we're trying to get experience? Yeah.
Are you asking how can you sort of provide context for your?
You can pass the screening process.
Oh, how do you pass this?
If you don't have like the years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, you're gonna get auto-rejected by computers a lot, and that's okay. If you can get someone in the company to get your resume into your system, you can usually bypass that. So do that whenever possible, and that's, again, exactly what I was talking to Jeremiah about, like, even if it's like, hey, introduce me to your friend, and I can say, hey, Anna, I'm Kim. And this is a true story that I did. I see you work at Oracle. I would like to apply for the junior position they have open. Would you be willing to refer me for that, or something like that? And she totally was. So that's the first way: is get an employee at the company to refer you. Like that's definitely preferable. Cold applying, I guess that's where the cover letter would come in. Like you want to describe in your cover letter, you might just say like, even though I don't have the 5 years of Java experience that you're asking for, I have a graduate degree in this, I worked on this, and it relates to it in this way. But I honestly think that's a long shot. Like, I hate that we have to write cover letters because they're so infrequently read, but sometimes that's the way you get in. So take those cover letters seriously when you're cold applying. You're welcome.
More questions for Kim?
Also, I know Kyle really well. I can like tell you some Kyle stories.
Yeah!
Dan.
Why is
interesting. I don't know about bowling. So I work at a company that's fully remote. There's no central office. Most of us work from home. And I live in Broomfield, and it kind of disrupts my day if I come into Denver or go into Boulder for coffee. So I do a lot of Zoom meetings, and like people are usually like awesome because it reduces the amount of time you're away from the keyboard. So that's something I do a lot. Coffee, I've done drinks. I don't know, I feel like I've done walks before. I think it's that middle thing that can alleviate some of the awkwardness. I guess bowling, if you get that feel from someone. That's a good question.
The thing about coffee is that it can be as short as 15 minutes if it's not going well.
Yeah.
If it's going well.
That's a good point.
Keep going. It's like that whole like it's not a commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and also I think sometimes people say, "Well, you get coffee with me," and then I'm like, "Yeah, let's do a Zoom meeting." I think it just means, may I have a shortish meeting with you? Is actually what it means culturally. Yeah. Would you like? Yeah, I mean, you know, there's some good juice bars. Cats.
Cat.
Cat. Cat. That's my sister's name. I can do that.
So through your teaching experience, through your student experience, about like maybe percentage ratio wise, how many people have you seen be successful through cold applying?
Ooh, cold applying. I think I'm trying to think, it's either 80-20, like 20 cold apply, 20% cold apply, or 90-10. But it's high. Like, you are not, some of you will, but like, you're probably not gonna get a job through cold applying. That being said, like, I got a job offer out of cold applying, like, my first round, so. I guess it's like diversifying your investment portfolio. And sometimes I advise people to play a different game at a different time. Like sometimes I'm like, you need to stop cold applying because you can get obsessed with cold applying. You can be like, I applied to 50 companies this week, and when someone says that to me, I'm like, whoa. So sometimes I'll say like, okay, you need to not cold apply to anything this week, and you need to ask for coffee with 3 different people. But sometimes people have really worked the networking route and maybe they haven't cold applied, and I will advise them to just like do the sales thing and like send out a lot of applications. So know the game you're playing. There's 2 parts of the game, cold applying and the networking, and like so maybe they're even sometimes. Sometimes you're doing this, but you just want to be strategic. But I don't know, Kyle, do you have a percentage answer for cold apply versus not?
I would say that you should always be like, put some cold applies in the funnel, especially early on in your career. Like, I don't do them anymore. I'm like more of a sniper, pick your shot. But that's and that takes a lot more work. Like for a single job, before I even apply, I've probably done, days of research on the company.
Well, you can't do that yet.
Yeah, it's like
I can't quite do that yet, but I'm getting there. But like, you need a lot of.
Yeah, early on in your career, like some of this is like luck and numbers, and so like you got to do a lot of both of them. So I'd spend a couple hours a day doing cold applies, and especially the ones you're really interested in, warm them up.
Yeah, that's good advice. All right, I can take 2 more questions.
I'm Damon.
Damon.
So you mentioned that, I think you mentioned that you grew up here, right? And, I'm not familiar with the geography really. And then you did work in Wisconsin. How did you get your job out in Wisconsin without, well, maybe it was networking, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I grew up in Canyon City, Colorado, which is south of here. I went to school in Greeley, and then I moved to Fort Collins, and I taught there before I moved to Wisconsin. Teach for America is part of the deal is that they help you get a job. So I actually just got placed in Milwaukee Public Schools through Teach for America. So I don't know if I just moved there and tried to get a teaching job. At that time, it was 2010. At that time, like, it was still the recession. Like, a lot of people moved into teaching to have jobs, so there were not a lot of open teaching positions. So that's how I got my job, is the organization placed me. Yeah. Are you wondering because you might want to move somewhere else without a network?
I'm actually from somewhere else, so I moved here to do this, and I'll probably be going back like around finish.
Cool.
Aww.
Well, I assume you know people where you came from and are going back to, and even if they're not tech people, like starting there, and then going to, where is this place?
It's
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's tech meetups there, and start going to tech meetups and like making yourself known. If there's some sort of online meeting place for Ann Arbor technologists, like get on there now and say like, hey, my name is Damon and I'm doing this, but I'm coming back soon. And also, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting tech work going on in Detroit. If you're looking at it. So, yeah, I don't know the specifics, but get involved online, and then once you're back there in person, get involved and start the cold apply. And just looking for LinkedIn. Who do you know who knows tech people? Yeah. Dan?
I thought about this because of something that Rob said, like, if the coffee talk is going bad, it's awkward. What's something you can do to remedy that? Because, like, my answer was bowling, because, like,
Yeah.
my bowling prowess is just really low.
What is happening?
Like, if it gets awkward during coffee, what do you do?
It's like being on a bad first date. You're like, I gotta go. Honestly, like, just be like, thank you so much. Like, I have a class now, or what? Just make up some excuse. If it's that bad.
Stops at questions.
Yeah, also that. Like, yeah, that's good advice. I guess I assumed you were asking me questions. All right, Kat, follow up.
So following on that too, I guess say it's something you feel you really are after, and that when goes bad, I guess would you suggest reaching out to another person, or you've already kind of severed that?
I think it depends on how big the company is. If it's my company that we have like 18 engineers, like I'll probably hear about it. But if it's a bigger company like HomeAdvisor, like they probably have different engineering teams. This is not at all what you're asking, but I'm gonna say this anyway. Your dream company, maybe your second or third job. So you're like, I really want to work at Slack. You probably aren't gonna get hired at Slack right out of this experience, but you could very well get hired at Slack after your first job, and it could go really fast. So that's possible too. And also, there are a lot of really bad companies out there. There are also like a lot of really good companies out there that you've never heard of, like Fairwinds Ops. So don't think only companies like, I don't know, Slack or GitHub. There are lots of good and bad places to work. So yeah. Also, don't worry about it too much. I think you in particular should be fine.
Go ahead.
Other cat?
Yeah, other cat. Is there a way to find these companies?
Yes. There is a site called Key Values that if you're on the Denver Devs, people will be like, how can I figure out a company's values? And then a bot will come up and say, Key Values. So that's a company I don't know what it is, a platform that shows off companies that say what they value. And so that can be interesting. It depends on what you value. So if inclusion and diversity is really important to you, there are sites like the one I helped build is called diversity.us. Diversify Tech is another platform. Built in Colorado has some interesting data about companies, about what they value or perks that they have or company values. That being said, take all that with a grain of salt. Ask about it in the interview if you get there, because sometimes companies say they value one thing and then when you get there, you're like, oh, that's not true. Or it is superficially, but it's not actually true. So, yeah, I guess the thing, I'll wrap up with this. So the thing that is so interesting to me about Kyle, that I learned a lot about Kyle, was about being values driven and mission driven. And that transcends schools, that transcends companies. And so, like, know what you like and what you believe in, and be able to talk about that and land at places where that is true. And like you said, you'll work in a lot of different companies through your life, and that's okay. And like stick to your values and be on a team that's good for you and be good to other people and pass it forward and all that. So again, I'm Kim. You can contact me on Denver Devs or in person. You may request my connection on LinkedIn. I do check LinkedIn occasionally, and actually, I use LinkedIn extensively, like as a job. I'm not even looking for a job right now, but I still like do a lot of like who works here, and like if I were to get laid off tomorrow, like I feel like I have a plan. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.